Welcome to Percolating Change, where we brew better outcomes one sip at a time. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with Lata Hamilton, who is an independent consultant from Passion Pioneers, on the topic of blending neurolinguistic programming. In the next 20 minutes or so, Lata will chat about inspiring change leadership. And well, in particular, I want to hear what Lata has to say about that. And we'll cover practical tips and tap into future benefits and benefits mapping. Lata, can I get you to open this out? Because I've been intrigued by your background and the things that you do and the leadership that you incite. And I'm really delighted to have you on the podcast. Please just start with how do you go about including neurolinguistic programming into change management?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. For me, the inclusion of neurolinguistic programming and coaching, it happened very organically. So before I had moved into change management, I was working in marketing. And then I, like outside of work, I had started studying neurolinguistic programming, which if your listeners and viewers don't know what that is, it's the study of excellence in behavior, communication, and psychology or our emotions. And so I was studying NLP and coaching, becoming a certified NLP practitioner and coach, and then started a side hustle outside of my change management career. So then when I moved into change management, I brought all of those tools and techniques because I was using those one-on-one with my clients outside and in a few group programs as well. I just naturally could see the value of them. And so I started to bring those into my change management work really naturally. So like it might be the way that I was communicating or connecting with a particular stakeholder, or it might be things that I built into workshops, or it might be ways that I approached communications. And I brought them in really naturally. And then I had some peers of mine who had years ahead of me in change management, years more experience. Like I was a few years into change management by this stage. And they were like, how do you do what you do? And I was like, doesn't everybody do change management like this? But the truth is that actually they didn't. I had this extra unique sort of flavor, this unique kind of proposition where I brought these things in and I was, either connecting with stakeholders, helping to come up with like a change brand and theme, or sometimes even like running like a workshop for a senior leadership team of, some of the biggest companies in Australia, and bringing in these tools and techniques and getting really effective outcomes with them. And so that's where I sort of realized that I had that extra magic to add, or that unique, that different way of approaching change management compared to other practitioners in change.
I really love that. Can I just take a step back? You started off in marketing, then at some point you made the switch to change management. So how did that happen? Because I think that's
Yeah.
really interesting to tie that bit up, because marketing is a form of change management, I think loosely, but not really.
Yes.
Yeah, please, how did you make the switch into that?
Yeah, so I actually studied media and communications at university. And then when I left university, I'd already been working casually for a small advertising agency. And so that advertising agency, to be completely honest, it just wasn't paying me enough. I was like, oh, I didn't go to uni for 4 years and get really good results and like win awards and things like that to get paid like pittance. And so that's when I made the move into corporate, and I made the move into sales and marketing graduate program. And then again, I sort of wanted a pay rise. I wanted a progression in my career. I went and moved into a bank. And then I was speaking with a colleague of mine who was a project manager. And she was a bit older than me, like a fair bit older than me. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next, actually. I kind of was like in a place where I was about to finish my fixed term contract, and she was the one who suggested, "Oh, I think you'd be a great change manager." I'd never heard of it
Wow.
before, didn't know anything about it, but she obviously had worked with change managers before. And when I went and sort of spoke with a change manager, and then I went to the Change Management Institute, they have like a free networking drinks, and I remember going to the networking drinks and just thinking, if these are the kinds of people, like everybody was so nice and so helpful, I'm like, if these are the kinds of people that change management attracts, then this is the kind of profession that I want to work in.
Oh,
And I was already
wonderful.
career coaching by that stage, so I just updated my CV, took all of my transferable skills from marketing, aligned it to change management, and landed my first change management job within a couple of months.
Wonderful. That's amazing. That
Mm.
is just amazing. And then, of course, the history has spoken for itself. So go back to what you were saying. Thank you for that insights. I think it's important for others to sort of see that it doesn't matter where you've come from. But I also like the fact that you believed in yourself. You didn't go to uni for 4 years and get all of those fantastic marks and won awards, as you've said, to be paid pittance. So you believed in yourself and you've taken your own path and have done marvelously well. So back to using neurolinguistic programming, if I can get my tongue around that word. Tell us now, tell our viewers how you really hone in on that to actually get the best out of your clients and stakeholders.
Yeah, so it is a bit of a mouthful, even for me, neuro linguistic programming. So it's much easier to just say NLP for short.
It is.
So I was about 5 years into my change management career, when again, like, some of the feedback from some of my peers and things like that was like, how do you do what you do? And I noticed there was a bit of a gap, like, in the market around how to actually do change management delivery. So there was a lot of courses that you could take, which was like methodologies and theories and concepts. And you could get the accreditations and the certifications in that. But I was like, there isn't just like a course or a way of just learning how to practically do change management, how to actually just do it in a project for a team, how to actually do the change management delivery itself. So the communications, training, business readiness activities. And so I decided to actually, I'd been thinking a little bit for a while. Again, money is a big motivator for me. I sort of say that your career is the launch pad to the rest of your life. And so for me, I was thinking, what am I going to do with my change management career? Because I'm almost at the sort of the market cap of what I can earn as a day rate contractor.
Mm.
I'm like, am I just going to be on that for the next 20 years? And so I thought, well, let's approach it differently. And people were sort of saying, oh, how do you do what you do? So I was like, okay, well, why don't I sort of start to teach that? And I did a little bit of a pilot program of my Leading Successful Change course, which teaches how to do change management delivery and builds in the NLP and the coaching on top of it. So I build in all of those things that I was doing when I was leading change that made change really inspiring, really relevant, really resonant with people, that really engaged the hearts and the minds. And I'll share a few of those tools with you. But so I did that, and then I had been thinking about starting my own independent consultancy. And so I did a pilot for the program. People absolutely loved it. They got so much value out of it. A lot of people got new jobs um, or stepped up in promotion
Wonderful.
from the program. And so then I was like, okay, well, now I finished my last contract. I took a few months off, built the course, and then I was like, now it's time to start my consultancy. And again,
Nice.
like, it was really about taking those tools and those techniques, but almost starting to formalize it a little bit. So
Yes.
one really good example is I run this future state workshop for my clients, for my consulting clients. And if they're about to start a big transformation or a project, then I'll often run this future state workshop. And the future state workshop kind of comes in two parts. The first part is benefits mapping. So mapping the business benefits of this change. And often there might already be a business case, but when my consulting clients bring me in nice and early into the piece, sometimes even before there's a project manager on the program, um,
Nice.
I'm able to actually kind of go, like, this isn't just about the figures. It's not just about the business case. What do we actually want to achieve from this change? How do we want to transform the experience of people? It's almost to the point which I've said to some clients, it almost doesn't matter what the change is. It almost doesn't matter what system you put in or what operating model you decide on or what you do differently. If you can give people the experience, if you can reach and resonate with their emotions, if you can help them have a better experience through the change and then in their day-to-day work, I'm like, you've kind of won change success, right? Like that is what change success is all about. Regardless of the solution, regardless of the operating model, regardless of the system, whatever change I'm working on. And so that's where the future state workshop really comes from. So with the benefits mapping, I use a specific tool that is an NLP tool. It's called chunking up. And the tool is based on the idea that the higher level you go, so the more highly you chunk, then the more agreement that you can get with people. And then the lower level you go, the more detailed, the more specific you go down, the more variance of opinion, in inverted commas, disagreement, or like variation you'll get. And so it's a really simple technique. We just ask the question for what sorry, I'll say that again. We just ask the question for what purpose or what's the highest intention of that. So we don't ask the question why, we just ask the questions for what purpose, what's the highest intention of that. So let's just say it's an enterprise resource platform. It's going to go across, all functions, sales, marketing, delivery, operation, finance. So then I'll be like, okay, what's the purpose? For what purpose do we want this ERP? And then the group, so I'll often do this with, like I've done this with boards, I've done this with executive teams, I've done this with project teams, and I've even done it just one-on-one with a stakeholder. And so they will answer it, and then you go, great, what's the purpose of that? For what purpose do we want that thing? What's the highest intention of that? And you just keep going around and around. And what you end up with is you'll end up getting to this really high level value or this really high level experience or this really high level purpose. You've chunked up so highly that everybody can get behind that. So one really good example that I love to share is I was doing this one time with just a project manager.
Sorry, Lata, to interrupt you. I just have a question before you go into the example. When you say you speak to project teams, doesn't matter who you speak to, is there a level of change management maturity that needs to be at a certain base level to attract these conversations? Or is it, because I'm interested in how this works in terms of, you want to sell the concept, promote the concept of moving hearts and minds along, but how do you get to that point where everyone is saying, yes, I'm ready to hear all of this? So how do you get there? Or will you get there in the meeting or before the meeting? How do you get there?
Yes, it's a great question because actually a lot of my consulting clients, their change maturity is very low. Some of them have never even done a transformation in 20 years or / ever. They don't have a lot of project maturity. They don't have a lot of change maturity. A lot of my consulting clients are actually medium-sized businesses, operational type businesses like logistics or manufacturing, for example. I've worked with non-government organizations. I've worked with airlines. I've worked with construction companies. And it's almost like their maturity level of change is low, but because they've never done this before and because you're coming in as a consultant, you are there as their trusted advisor.
Yeah.
So usually there'll be like one person who will be like your client, who will have introduced you to the organization, and they believe in you and your approach and they know your expertise and what you can do. They've either seen you online, or maybe they've worked with you in the past, or maybe they've researched you and found your website. So they believe in the value that you can bring. So they'll often advocate for you, even if they're not the one who ends up ultimately paying, signing off on your statement of work or paying your invoice. Then when you actually are going and running this workshop, you have to do the work up front to explain what change management is, the value of change management, the approach that we're looking to take. And you're starting to get that buy-in from whoever it is that you're working with, the board, the executive team, the project team.
I like that. I think it's important to have said that up front, just so people get an idea that this is just not so easy. And you've said two things. You might have someone who's advocated for you before and has believed in you, but you still have to do the work once you get there. But and that work is important. That work that you're talking about in such detail is absolutely important to get success. So I like that future state and the benefits mapping. Continue. Yeah. Go on, Lata.
Yes, all good. So this particular project manager that I was working with, she was a finance person, and I asked her, I'm like, "What's the purpose of this system that we're putting in?" She's like, "Oh, it's for financial reporting," and I was like, "Nobody is going to care about that. Like, if anything, that might actually
Put
break
them off.
trust with a lot of the
Yeah.
organization, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, you just care about the dollars, you don't care about me."
Mm.
And so I went through this process with her. So this is the first time I really used it in a corporate setting.
Chunking up.
And I used this process with her, and we ended up chunking up. Just asked her for what purpose, what's the highest intention. Went around in circles, got to this highest level, and we ended up discovering that the purpose of this system was to make better decisions.
I
And when I
love
asked her,
that.
who do we make decisions for, she said, our community. And like everybody, because that was a government organization, everybody in that organization was often there and came to work and showed up to work because they loved the community. It gave them so much of a sense of purpose. So we ended up making the program, we called it Make It Count. And the tagline was empowering better decision making for our community. And then there was like a bit of a sub tagline, which was, and you can see my marketing kind of come out a bit here. The sub tagline was every asset, every person, every dollar, every decision. And that all came from this one, like maybe it was 15, 20 minutes that I spent with her.
That's wonderful, Lata.
Yeah.
That's
Whereas
amazing.
with a future state workshop, it might be more like 3 hours that you're kind of doing the future state workshop. But like one example that I had this like the owner of a business, and I was with his board. And the owner of this business, and he came in and he was like really gruff. He was late and he crossed his arms and he was like really not having a bar of it, didn't know why he was there. And this is, you kind of have to take them on the journey, right? And you've got to be so confident and believe in the approach that you're taking and in your skill level.
Yeah.
And so we did this process. By the end of it, he had tears in his eyes because he realized that the reason that he wanted to have this business was because he wanted his people to be developed and to be able to live like their best lives, essentially. It had nothing to do with the system that we were implementing. But it was like everybody could get behind helping employees, customers, anybody to actually be essentially living their best lives. And in another case, I had an executive team, prickly stakeholder in the executive team. By the end of running this activity, she was so excited. She was so on board. She was so engaged. Like I've just seen people transform. So like, even if you have stakeholders who maybe aren't as touchy-feely, who aren't as woo-woo, who, don't believe in you at the beginning, taking them through this process, and it's a process that I teach in my course, or, I can come and run it, or teach you how to run it. It's so, so, so powerful. And so we start with the benefits mapping, and then the second part of the future state workshop is the vision setting. We do an inspirational change vision. And again, we use more of an NLP coaching tool to help us do that, so that you're setting your change up for a really powerful, like from a really powerful foundation that drives a lot of the communications, key messaging, key narrative. It can help you create the change brand and theme, can even help you create the program name.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. It's so much better than taking people along a journey. That taking people along the journey is so narrow, but what you're saying is exactly that. I just love how you've described that, and I can see the value in that, because it feeds into everything else, as you've just said. It feeds into, your branding, the communication messages, your target audience. It does all of that work up front loads all of that work for you. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Now, because I can't believe that we're running out of time already, but I really want people to know how they can get hold of you, how they can utilize your courses, what's the best way people can tap into getting with Lata Hamilton.
Yeah, so definitely go across to my website, latahamilton.com. And over there, you can find my ultimate guide to change management, where I actually talk about a bit of these things and how to bring in the NLP and the coaching, and also just generally what change management is. So if you're in an organization with low change maturity, it's an absolutely gold piece of free content that you can share and download and whatnot. My ultimate guide to change management. And then come find me on LinkedIn. And, I'm always talking about change. I'm always talking about change leadership, and, different ideas, different tools, different techniques. So come find me on LinkedIn, say hi, come give me a follow, or shoot me a DM, and always happy to help, always happy to chat.
I love that, Lata. That's wonderful. I would be a client of yours if I wasn't in the same business as you. But maybe you can help me do some other things. All right. This is amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we finally landed at our chat. I was determined to actually share your insightful guidance with others. And thank you for coming along on Percolating Change, where we brew better outcomes one sip at a time. Thank you so much, Lata. And to our viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this session. And as Lata has said, please follow her on LinkedIn and give her a like. Thank you so much.